We're working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome to Asean in Focus Weekend. I'm Kaloy Tabundo Jr. from the New Era University Asian Studies Center. For most Filipinos, moving abroad has been a common, acceptable, and even desirable option or strategy for a better life. For many years, a considerable number of Filipinos have left home in search of a permanent settlement or temporary work overseas, mainly due to fragile Philippine economy. But although it has been said that Philippine economy has improved in recent years, a number of Filipinos still opt to go abroad. Among the most common destinations are the countries in the Middle East, such as Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Qatar. But there are other places in Asia that many Filipinos go to, like Taiwan, Macau, or Hong Kong. Now, for today's episode, we will talk about migration, particularly Filipino migration to China. And joining us in today's discussion is Dr. Sidney Christopher Bata, a good friend of mine. Dr. Bata is the current director of the Chinese Studies program of Ateneo de Manila University. He is also a professor of Chinese language and culture and Chinese society. He finished his PhD at Huazhong University of Science and Technology in Wuhan, China, and his Master of Arts at Fudan University in Shanghai. His master's thesis was about Filipino migration to Chinese cities in the globalization era, while his doctorate thesis was about impacting factors on adaptation of international graduate students in China and its educational management. Welcome to the program, Dr. Sidney.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here in Asian in Focus Weekend Edition. Okay, so your main field of study is about Filipino migration, particularly to China. Okay. Do we have documented accounts of when did Filipinos start migrating to China?
Yes, sir. The Filipino migration, the most high-profile one, the oldest high-profile one is the migration, which was actually a visit of the Sultan Paduka Pahala.
From Mindanao?
From Mindanao, from Sulu.
From Sulu, okay.
He went to China 602 years ago. So this is the most high-profile one. So
602 years ago.
Yes,
okay.
yeah. So we can expect something older than that one, but it was the most documented one because he died there. So right now, since he died there, some of his relatives stayed there, and then some came home, and then the ones that stayed there, they already have descendants there who are part of the Hui. Hui is an ethnic group in China. They are Muslims in China. They look very similar to the Han Chinese or the mainstream Chinese. So people do not really see them, but when they dress up in their culture is really mostly Islamic or a Muslim.
Where in China is this again?
This is in Shandong.
Shandong. What part of China is
It is
Shandong?
in the northern part of China. So in that Shandong area, his tomb is there. So they had a very big group that went there, Filipino group that went there during the 600th commemoration. So 2 years ago, there were a lot of his relatives here in the Philippines. They went there by batches, but eventually it was a big 600th commemoration there because their relatives in China joined them for that big.
So these are Muslim Filipinos?
Yes, I'd say most of them are from Sulu because these are the direct descendants. But some of them are already in other places, but they are so identified with Muslims. And some papers even state that they converted, the Sultan converted to Islam in China. He did not convert when he was here.
Okay.
So
but we're not sure which one is true.
I'd say we're leaning towards the one that he really converted there because Islam in China started earlier than here. It was through the port of Guangzhou that the Arabs went there.
The Arab traders.
Yes, Arab traders went there. And hindi lang Arabs, a lot of the Christians also. They also started in China quite earlier because they had it was more strategic for them. More people were in China, so if they wanted to convert people to their religion, there were more people there as compared to the islands here in the Philippines.
Okay, so let's repeat again. More than 6 centuries ago, when the first documented, actually,
Yes, it is.
documented Filipino. It's not actually migration, but visit to China upon invitation of the was it the Chinese emperor who invited them?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay, you said this is the most documented, which
the most
means
high profile.
which means there may be other Filipino visitors who went to China.
Then it was more of barter trade, the trading. So with these types of trading, they were already invited. People there were invited here. People here were invited there, so there were a lot of exchanges. And since a lot of those changes were so frequent, we were not able to see how the established migration was. But since he was a high-profile person, Sultan, and then he died there, it was they did not get the name of the illness or the cause of the sickness, but he just suddenly died. That was the document said that he suddenly died. So since they could not bring his dead body home, they had to put him in a elevated place, because in China dead people would be put in elevated places. So his dead body was there, and then his descendants eventually stayed there. Some of the descendants, because the proper custom before was when the departed's body is there, they had to get relatives to stay there and look after the dead body for some years.
Okay.
So with that, they did not come home anymore.
Okay, so they stayed there.
They
were assimilated to.
They assimilated, fully assimilated.
Fully assimilated.
Yes.
And then we were able to trace who their relatives are here in the Philippines.
Yes,
mostly
it's easier to track here because again he's a high-profile person. He's the Sultan, so it was easy to detect that. To connect that to his family. And then I suppose they had open movement from here. They would visit the tomb, and these types of reconnection for those relatives who were farther relatives, like long lost relatives. It was still easy for them, but since, like we said, it's 600 years, those relatives have gone to have their own families. So connecting it was not that hard. And then for the group Philippine Association of Chinese Studies, they even have pictures of the relatives there, the direct descendants, and then they took pictures with the relatives here on the first time they met. So there are these types.
So the experience, because I used to live in Tawi-Tawi.
Yes.
I worked there for decades ago.
Wow.
And then I was surprised that many of at least the prominent families there in that part of the Philippines, Sulu, Tawi-Tawi, have Chinese family names.
Yes.
So ito pala, they are related.
Yeah, like what you said. You were telling me earlier the story about when you were in Tawi-Tawi, you would go to places like border of Malaysia and all these. When we had all these islands before, they freely would go from one place to the other.
These are the traditional trading areas.
Yes, it is. And then a lot of Chinese really came here. They intermarried, and then they have they still carry the Chinese last names there. It's just us here. We do not have a lot of these research, but our unit in Ateneo, the Chinese Studies program, we're trying to come up with a conference. We're still trying to come up with a lot of papers that could
really trace
it, like what are they currently doing. Because last time we went there, December of 2014, we were already able to see like some of them became mayors, some of them became doctors, and there are more than these ones. The number is quite big. Like you said, Chinese surnames, middle name is Chinese. They're quite a lot. It's just they're fully assimilated. Aside from the Chinese surname, people do not really see them as
different from them.
As different because they're fully like them. Yeah.
So this helps the narrative that Chinese and Filipinos were never enemies. We're actually relatives. Can that support the narrative?
I'd say we're neighbors, and since we cannot select or pick or choose our neighbors, these types of things are harmoniously existing. Of course, the politics is still the politics, but these are good people who live together harmoniously.
These things are recognized, but they're not being
publicized,
let out in the open, di ba, na we have this relation, we have these historical relations long before the Westerners, long before the Spaniards, long before the Americans came to our shores, we have this relationship with our Chinese neighbors.
Yes, it is. If I may say so, the history books do not really write a lot about our pre-colonial Philippines. There are several groups that are trying to do that. I know of two universities, the University of Asian Pacific and Ateneo, the Manila University. And maybe probably your university is also into this. Like we are now.
We will be going there.
Yes, yes.
With your help, of course.
Yeah, we are trying to come up with the real picture, the more elaborate stories and the history about the pre-colonial Philippines, because it's there. It's about time we put it out in the open. It's time we fill our textbooks with that lengthy part, as opposed to the ones we did when we were in elementary. I suppose you started with pre-colonial,
our history,
post-colonial.
Our history started with the discovery of the Philippines by Magellan.
Yes, yes. So
no, there was much more than that.
Yes, it is.
So, you're part of the Philippine Association for Chinese Studies. So
yes,
what do you do to let this out, to publicize this?
Like the one I was saying earlier, the 2014 conference, it was done in Davao. And then the side trip was really to see what the Chinese who married the locals, what are they doing, which industries are they currently engaged in. This is what the Philippine Association of Chinese Studies is doing. This is one of those research topics we are doing. Of course, there are a lot more topics. If we would sit down and talk about it, there could be a lot more we could collaborate on.
Okay, the clear connection can be seen in the south, in Mindanao.
Yes, it
What
is.
about Luzon, particularly Metro Manila area?
Yeah, for Luzon, it's quite established here. It's the oldest Chinatown in the world. So that is definitely there. And then if you would look at a lot of places around the Philippines, hardly do we hear about history about the Chinese in Butuan. But in Butuan, it's well documented. They have museums there. If you go to Cebu, there are these so-called Chinatowns, and they have these long history of that. And then if you look at the businesses, these are established by a lot of Chinese Filipinos. The chambers are there, Chinese Filipino schools. History should be more than 100 years. But beyond these ones, you could already see traces like, it's clearly seen in food. You would hear the names of food. But if you trace farther, I mean bigger, you could even see, like I said, established Chinatowns in these places. More than just Manila. Because Manila is where it is very commercialized, if I may. If you would see the Moon Festival or the Lunar New Year festivals, mainstream Filipinos go there. But these places have already been doing it for several hundreds of years already. Okay,
letting this out in the open, telling the stories that were never told. Do you think? Yeah, because these are stories that, well, some of them are told, but not that popularized. Do you think this will solve the current? This will help solve the current tension between Philippines and China?
I'd say the tension for the disputes, for
particularly the South China Sea, of course.
Yeah, for the territorial. I'd say China by itself, they have 14 of these types of cases. So they have their hands full. If we are not part of that territorial dispute, they still have 13 others. They have this because they have land borders. And for us, this is not the only dispute we have. We also have our own with Malaysia. So it happens, neighbors have that. If we are neighbors, we would also fight over kaninong kay Mito Trito. Pag yung bunga pumunta sa'yo.
Bumagsak sa bakuran ko, akin ba yan?
So these things are normal. These things are normal. But I'd say yes to your question. Would it ease a little? Yeah, I think understanding our neighbor.
This is the people-to-people level. Okay.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. When it comes to people-to-people, it's easier to do that because we could do a lot of exchanges, whether it be education, sports, other developments, technology. People-to-people is the way to go. Okay. But I'd say the disputes, the governments are there for this. Governments create division. people make it closer, but the
Yes,
governments
okay.
really function for such.
So we really need to develop our people-to-people relationship, and one way of doing that is really to retell this or tell the stories that have never been told,
Yes.
retell the stories that were kept out in the back burner of our history.
Yes, there are a lot. There are a lot.
Okay,
yes.
we will talk more about the different issues regarding Filipinos in China when Asian in Focus Weekend Edition returns. Welcome back to Asian in Focus Weekend Edition, and we're still here with Dr. Sidney Christopher Bata. Ang haba pala ng apelyido mo. You have two names, Sidney Christopher. And before we went on a break, we were talking about migration in general. Now we will discuss Filipino migration to China in particular. Okay, first question. Do you have any idea how many Filipinos are in China now?
The last time I did my research, it was 10,000, but the figure of the current trip of President Duterte said that there are now 12,500 Filipinos there. So hindi dumami.
You're talking of the places outside Hong Kong.
Yes, it is.
Kasi definitely there are more than 100,000 Filipinos.
If we're going to count the places that speak Chinese, Taiwan would have around 200 to 250,000
Filipinos.
Yes, yes, and then
Okay.
they would be doing jobs that are quite different from the ones they do in China. They're doing more of factory and in some household. And then for Hong Kong, there'd be a lot. There'd be around 240 for documented ones. And then the undocumented, I think it would swell to a number of 400,000.
So almost 1 million just for Taiwan and Hong Kong, and maybe perhaps Macau.
And then Macau has some also. Maybe half, I'd say maybe 600,000 for those combined.
Okay. The 10,000 plus you're talking about are those in mainland China.
Yes, yes.
When you say mainland, outside Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan.
When we say mainland, we mean like mainland China.
Beijing.
Beijing would have around 2,500, and then Shanghai would have the most. They have around 7,000 to 8,000
Shanghai,
people.
okay.
And then Guangzhou would have some also. Xiamen would have the most, 7,000
okay.
to 8,000. They have the most
Xiamen,
because it's the nearest also to the Philippines, and it's where a lot of young people go to. Of course, Shanghai is there are a lot also, but I'd say Shanghai would only have around 3,000 because Shanghai would be very. If they'd be hiring a lot of Westerners. As if it's about English, they'd be hiring them more than the Filipinos, because when Filipinos go there, we do, for the research I did, a lot of them are doing white collar jobs. So very
Shanghai,
different. In Shanghai,
white collar,
the whole of China.
Okay.
The whole of China.
Teachers.
Predominant teachers, musicians, architects, technical people who are in the manufacturing, real estate people, managerial for hotels and restaurants. And then there are some, very few, that are in the industry of say in the nanny or in the household ones.
So you're talking here of the mainland China.
Mainland China, right? Mainland China. So it's very different from their profile with that of Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Macau. In Macau, I'd say a lot of them are in the casino lines.
Yes.
But in mainland, there are no casinos there, so they're very different. That's why we have Pogo here. They offshore. It's online. That's
Can
why.
you explain it again for the sake of our viewers? Why are there Pogos, Philippine offshore gaming?
There are a lot of these online gaming or offshore gaming,
because these are prohibited in mainland.
This is prohibited in mainland China.
Okay.
It is okay in Macau. It is okay probably in Hong Kong, but not in mainland China. That's why you see a lot of people in probably Mall of Asia.
So alam nyo na kung bakit maraming inchik dito, the Pogos.
The Pogos. So there are around 300,000 ones. Some of them, the undocumented ones, siyempre maraming hulihan ngayon. So a lot of them are being deported right now.
So there are more Chinese now in the Philippines compared to Filipinos in mainland China.
Yes. Okay. There was an attempt a couple of years ago, to get a lot of these skilled Filipino to China by virtue of teaching and also some household. But the figure they're talking about would only be, it would dwarf it. It's around 2,000 Filipinos only per year, and the salary would be around $1,200 or $1,200. So hindi siya kalakihan, mga 60,000 pesos.
But they still go there?
Hindi pa nagawa. We haven't started that, but that was the projection. The ones I heard before when that talk was being done, it would go around 80,000 to 100,000. So the ones the figure I said was the one from Duterte's group, the one on the newspaper. But I think on the ground, they're being promised more money.
This is monthly.
Yeah, it's monthly.
Monthly salary.
Yes, monthly salary.
So when this materializes, China will be a major overseas Filipino destination, I suppose.
Yes, it should be. It should be. In my thesis 10 years ago, I was telling the panelists in our university in Shanghai, I was telling them about the possibility of migrant of these migrant Filipinos coming into work, and a lot of them would follow what the model in Hong Kong and probably in Taiwan would be having. And they were laughing at me like, paano mangyari yan? There are a lot of manual laborers in China. There's no such thing. We cannot hire your maids because we have so many skilled laborers. Yes, skilled laborers here. And then I was telling about in Hong Kong, these maids are not just maids. They're stay-in tutors of English.
Yes, yes.
So I was telling them about the same probability of them coming to China with this one. And that time they were saying like, no, it's too expensive. But that was 10 years ago. Now they can afford to hire them, be it 60,000 pesos.
Have you contacted them again? And look who's laughing now.
No, I would not be doing that because my former panelists are now ranking officials.
Anyway, I've been to China several times and I have a hard time looking for Filipinos there, at least in the mainland. So they seem to be very, quiet there.
I'd say every time we talk about where to locate Filipinos, it's not hard if you want to look for them. This was the tip given to me when I studied in Taiwan. You go to an English speaking church on a Sunday, then you would find them. And then I'd say part of my research, I found out some numbers of Iglesia ni Cristo members who were part of that research I was doing. Because when I researched, I found several numbers of them filing or applying for some permits to have your regular Tuesday or Thursday or Sunday service. So they applied in those bureaus to have that become a reality. Because in China, we know that there are only five religions there. It's Catholicism, Protestantism, Buddhism, Taoism, and Islam. So aside from these five, there are no ways you could do like huge number of people coming together to do a service. So they even applied for it. So the presence of INC is there also. It was felt because in Shanghai, a consulate there already had these filed applications there.
Okay, you said that there are more Filipinos in Xiamen.
Yes, it is.
What are they doing there in Xiamen?
In Xiamen, a lot of them are in there, because like I said, it's a young people's place. Musicians are there. Teachers are there. Teachers because...
English teachers.
English teachers, because English teachers, for the Caucasian ones, they would prefer to go to the big ones, Beijing and Shanghai. So the ones that would go to a smaller city, a coastal city like Xiamen, would be fewer. So Filipinos would go to Xiamen, on the other hand, because it would be, the winter is mild. The coldest there would only be around 8 degrees. So hindi siya kalamigan. There would be no snowing. It's the greenest city. And then, aside from teachers, there are also these manufacturing people there. There would be service. When I say service, I mean hotel and restaurant managers who need English-speaking ones to go in. And then, as we always say, our hospitality is top-notch, so they really need our expertise in that department also.
Okay, so you did your research on China, And you have this, of course, the period of the Cultural Revolution.
Yes, it is.
What were the Filipinos doing in China during the Cultural Revolution?
Actually,
were there Filipinos in China?
Yes, it is. For those 10 years, the stretch, for that stretch, before when the communists took over China, the Filipinos were already there. They have been living there. And then for that time, that 10 years, 66 to 76, they were advised by the government to come back to the Philippines.
Okay.
Because during the Cultural Revolution, they were doing so many things that were unorthodox. So to save them that burden or that problem, they were advised to come home. A lot of them followed, they came home. But yung mga may matigas na ulo, they stay there also. And there were groups of Filipinos who were there also, like Jimmy Flor Cruz was there. Our current ambassador, he was also there. They were there during that time. So there were Filipinos who eventually became the news bureau heads of ABC. And CNN. So nagbunga naman yung pagstay nila doon. Yes.
Incidentally, Jimmy Flor Cruz will be our guest in one of our future episodes.
Yeah, he has a lot of stories to tell. He has pictures to show.
Please look forward to that.
Okay. He's a walking
dictionary,
history book. Yes,
encyclopedia.
Encyclopedia,
Okay, so and then of course, China fell under communist rule. When did the Philippines open diplomatic relations with China?
In 1975, President Marcos thought that
this was 4 years after Nixon visited China, right? 1970.
From my recall, China and the U.S. opened diplomatic ties 2 years after us. It was in 77. So we were there 2 years ahead of them. In 1975, Marcos commissioned a group from UP Diliman, from the Asian Center. They gave them the task of opening a consulate in Beijing. So the group of Professor Aurora Rojas Lim, Professor Benito Lim, they were there to put the pieces together, how to put up a consulate, which would eventually be an embassy. So the first visit of the Marcos family was in that same year, 1975 also. So it was our strongman, Ferdinand Marcos, and his wife, I think except for Bongbong. And then they met this dying Mao Zedong in 1975. And then a year after that, they went back. It was just I think it was just Imelda and Bongbong who went back after.
What do you think was the motivation? This was during the deep freeze, the Cold War.
Okay. The motivation was Marcos wanted to kill communism in the Philippines. And the way to kill communism in the Philippines was he would directly talk to the ones giving them arms, teaching them combat, teaching them how to survive in the wild. He went there to talk to them, so that would cut that whole ties between the communist factions in the Philippines in their mothership that time, the Mao Mao group, the Mao Zedong Communist bloc. So when Marcos went there, of course the loyalty of the government would be to the central government of the Philippines or the group of Marcos. So after that, the ties, the arms and everything was cut. They had no more supplies, and then it weakened that communist bloc of the Philippines.
So at least it was successful to that extent.
They were successful in making the Philippines democratic because they went straight to the mothership.
I like your term, mothership.
Mothership.
Okay. Okay, and then when did finally China open up its doors to foreigners? When did Nixon come again to China?
I believe it's 1977. If it's the opening up, if it's having diplomatic ties, it's 2 years after us.
So
I'm not quite sure if it's Nixon, but I'm definitely sure the opening up came 2 years after the Philippines.
And then of course you have China now, and then this resulted of course to many countries adopting the one China policy.
Yes. That is quite controversial in the Philippines because for the longest time, when mainland was close to itself, all the diplomatic ties for China was with the Republic of China, aka Taiwan. So when China opened its diplomatic doors to the Philippines, it was the PROC, or the People's Republic of China. So Philippines had to pick, do you go with ROC, which was China also, or PROC, which was China also.
The bigger China.
And then obviously Marcos made the choice that they would go with the one with the more upside, probably somewhere down the line. So yun yung pinili, yung PROC.
And to think that Taiwan was more economically developed.
That time Taiwan was doing everything right. The economy was in full swing, everything was okay. And I'd say Philippines did that gamble, and this is the story right now. And like you said, a lot of countries followed, and then they had this very controversial switching of allegiance. Suddenly they're now, as instead of looking at Taiwan as that main China, now they have really shifted to this up and coming.
Okay, we will talk more about the different dimensions of the relationship between China and the Philippines, particularly the people-to-people one, when ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition returns. Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition, and we're still here with Dr. Sidney Bata, and we're talking about China-Philippines people-to-people relationship. Although, of course, before we went on break, you talked about the results of Marcos' visit to China. Although you cannot directly attribute that, some of the things that happened afterwards. Can you at least tell us some of the positive things that happened after Marcos' visit to China?
It could be attributed to that trip to China and then opening of diplomatic ties with China. In December of 1975, Marcos had this presidential decree about, it's called the mass naturalization. It's a presidential decree, but it's mass naturalization. Now, for that mass naturalization, meaning a lot of these tago ng tago non-Filipinos can come out. It's an amnesty for them to come out, and they would become bona fide Filipinos. So, of course, on the surface, they're talking about everybody else who are all nationalities, but the main beneficiaries were the Chinese Filipinos who did not have Filipino citizenship. So on that year, in December of that year, a lot of them became overnight, they became Filipino citizens, bona fide Filipino citizens who would be taxpayers, who have been living here for so long but didn't have the proper documents. And in that same year, they did that. Of course, aside from the Chinese, there were Indian Filipinos, I'd say Japanese Filipinos, and maybe probably Malaysian and Indonesian Filipinos, but the big number were really the Chinese Filipinos.
But of course, we cannot discount the contribution of these new Chinese Filipinos to the Philippine economy, because they're mostly engaged in trading.
The current ones, you mean?
Those who were naturalized during that.
The ones that were naturalized. Now they have before they were naturalized, they have already fully assimilated. It's just their citizenships were not Filipino. So when they obtained the Filipino citizenship, I'd say now they're fully part of the nation building. A lot of them are in the academe, a lot of them are in commerce, in trading, a lot of them are now having government positions. So there was something positive in that December of 1975 that came out. I'd say there has to be a lot more research on this one. We in Ateneo, we tried to come up with this one. I'd say a lot of them are now fully part of the nation building, like I said.
Fully integrated.
Fully integrated, yes.
Okay, fast forward to now.
Yes.
And then we have this tension, we have this tension with China over the South China Sea and other issues. For example, of course, you have the POGOs now, the controversy of the POGOs. So has the recent relationship, your personal relationship with China, has it slowed down the migration of Filipinos to mainland China?
The migration did not really jump from, like I said, 10 years ago, it was 10,000. The current number is only 12,500. It did not really jump like triple or quadruple. With the warming up of the Duterte government to China, I'd say a lot. The tourism is good. People studying there have increased. It has a lot of things to it's like I'd say this is the time to go there if there is such a time. The thing is, when Filipinos go there are things to consider like language. It's not as easy as Filipinos go to Singapore or Filipinos going to even Hong Kong. There are more English speakers in Hong Kong. And there are these factors that hold them back and say, should I go there and work? Should I go there and plan a future? There are still things that are not yet addressed. Like a lot of people, when they go there, if you go online, you would see the strict, of course, when Filipinos go out and work, there are these requirements, like you have to show your documents. For those teaching English, you have to have TESOL requirements, and then they have another layer there that would be checking how good is your English, how good is your teaching. So there are these types of concerns. That's why it's not so easy to jump in.
They have stricter requirements for Filipinos too.
It's not just for Filipinos. It's for everyone. It's just when you want to stay there and work like long term. These are the things that you are looking at. These things being obtained from our own agencies are not easy. And then you get another layer there in China to do that. So I'd say the government is trying to come up with this because they already signed something like this. So it should smoothen things as we go along from here on. Like I said, there are projected 2,000 teachers that would be going to China every year. And I read somewhere in the papers that there are 60 students that are graduates of the Angeles University Foundation. They fully speak Mandarin. So these people, if they elect to stay there and work, they could be instantly filling vacant jobs there because there would be no language barrier anymore. They speak Mandarin. If they want to come back home and teach Chinese, it's another. The government in the Philippines, in particular in the DepEd, we have a lot of these open slots to teach Mandarin. So they could go both ways. They could come home and study and work like how they studied. They studied how to teach Chinese. They could elect to come here, stay here, or they could go there and teach English because Filipinos speak English. It would not be hard to teach basic English in China.
Of course, your research covered interviews with Filipino workers in China.
Yes.
So how do they find it there in terms of acceptance by the Chinese, for instance?
But like I said earlier, when we talk about China, during the time I did my research, even until now, predominant is white collar.
Okay.
So the white collar ones, it's easy for them to stay there and work because they work in some English-speaking places.
Okay.
For instance, if you are a college professor there, then you might probably be teaching English, and your students have to adjust to you.
Yes.
If you are the head of a hotel or a restaurant, and then most probably they hired this Filipino because they are in this English-speaking expats place. Or if not, if they are in some five-star hotels, their job is solely to talk to Europeans or English-speaking people. So for that particular part, it's okay. But the problem for them is when they go out, it's a different culture.
Outside the English, quote-unquote, territory.
Outside that
enclave, that English
enclave, if they go out, then there'll be a problem. But with internet right now, like there are Chinese translators wherein you can scan a certain word, it will pop out in English. It made things easier the last 3 or 4 years. And then with Grab or Uber kind of apps in China, you can just go from point A to point B without talking in Chinese. So these things have made their lives easier, the apps and the internet, because China is fully integrated by internet. So if you are in the internet, you're alive. You could shop without talking. It would bring your food and everything to your house without you stepping out. But still, the problem is when you go to your daily, if you go to your daily work with
commutes.
The commutes, it has gone easier. But I'd say, of course, it's a Chinese place, you still have to speak some Chinese. But I'd say with the technology right now, it has gotten easier.
Okay, but more Chinese, I suppose, are trying to learn English.
Yes, it is.
So what would be the future relevance of Filipino workers in China, specifically in the service sector?
China is trying to move to that idea that it's young people will be global citizens.
Okay.
So when you say global citizens, these are people who are ethnically Chinese, no Chinese, and now are learning some other foreign languages and are learning some foreign cultures. Now, like what my study said, the more Western China would be, the more things that Filipinos could do inside. Now,
so you're positive that
I'm quite,
with Chinese learning English, it will not be a hindrance to Filipinos coming to China to work?
Yeah, it's a 1.4 billion people living there.
Okay.
There are places that are never heard of, and these are places that nobody would want to go and work. And Filipinos are very, I'd say, adaptable to all these
conditions,
factors, conditions. So like there was this example from years ago. A friend told me he couldn't bear the cold weather in Harbin, which is like ice castle places.
That's where they do the ice carvings.
The ice carvings all year round. So would Filipinos go there and work? Probably. He didn't say yes, but probably some other Filipinos would go and say, yeah.
Remember, there are Filipinos in Alaska.
Yeah. My friend also lives in Alaska. Yes. Filipinos are...
So because of the adaptability, the flexibility of the Filipinos, the Chinese labor market would never be closed.
Aside from these ones, let me just talk about the current things we are doing in China. When it comes to the academe, there are more Philippine study centers right now.
Oh.
Okay. In the Philippines, we're the only Chinese studies program in the whole Philippines for all universities, and we're 33 years now. But in China, they have opened a lot of Philippine studies centers, Philippine studies programs, Philippine studies departments, wherein people would be learning Philippine studies, Filipino language, Philippine culture, and the like. So the more people learn Filipino, the more ties there should be, the more job opportunities, probably the more collaborations we could do. Of course, hindi lang lahat naman sa academe.
Yes.
But China is, like I said, they want to be global citizens. Of course, not everybody could be studying American English only. Not everybody could be doing Japanese only. There are sectors there, and if we go by numbers, 1.4 billion people, a fraction of that learning Filipino or about Philippine culture is still some millions.
Okay, why do you think, why the interest in Philippine studies in China now?
When we saw them before here, like 3 years ago, in China, if there are disputes, if there are butting of heads, if there's tension, there's a need to study it.
Okay.
That's why we're relevant. Our program is relevant because there is tension. Kapag walang tension, walang dispute, wag ka na mag-aral ng Chinese, wag ka na mag-aral ng Filipino. Everything is rosy, everything is happy. Wag na. Don't go to China anymore, just stay here.
So that's part of their strategic culture. They know that although we are there now, there will be conflicts with the Philippines. That's why they need to establish this.
I'd say studying somebody's culture could ease the tension.
Yes.
And without us studying it and them studying it, it could still ease the tension.
Okay, so that's a very good realization. There are many Philippine studies centers now in China.
Yes, it is.
But there's only one Chinese studies center in
the Philippines. But you soon will be opening one.
Okay, but wait for this new university will soon open its own China Studies Center, courtesy, of course, of Dr. Sidney Bata. Okay, we will come back for the last part of our program, and we'll talk more about the different issues of China-Philippines relationship. When Asean in Focus Weekend Edition returns. Welcome back to Asean in Focus Weekend Edition, and we're still here with Dr. Sidney Christopher Bata. And when we were on the break, you talked about Manny Pacquiao. What's he doing there in China? Of course, he's here, he's the senator, but what's his involvement in China?
So earlier I was talking about their institutes, centers, and programs for Philippine studies.
Oh, Philippine Studies Center
so that is very academic.
In China, okay.
But before all of these happened, when Pacquiao became the 8th division champion. So his legend grew around the world.
Yeah.
So when he got invited to China to open a boxing institute under his name.
Boxing institute.
Yeah, a lot of Filipinos thought he was turning his back on the Filipinos. The question then was, why did you open boxing institutes in the Philippines? Why did you open it in China? And then his answer was quite simple. He said, boxing is almost non-existent in China.
Okay.
The training would be done there. He doesn't have to be there. The institute is in his name. It's a training facilities, and it's all over the country.
Who invited him there? Do you know?
When you're a legend, I think people invite
yeah, I know that I've been to China many times, and they would always ask me about Manny Pacquiao.
Yes,
wow,
yes. He's really a legend. He's
so I even joked myself, you want him to become your president in China?
Yeah.
He's that popular.
He's that popular.
Not only in China, but everywhere.
Yes, he is.
So he opened a boxing institute in China.
All across China. It's
all
not just
across China. It's not just one facility.
I cannot remember which cities, but it's definitely more than one. It's definitely a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was questioned before online, like, why are you doing it for China? Why did you open it in the Philippines? And he said that it's not his money that opened it. It's under his name. And then the training.
They use his name, parang.
It's a partnership, I think.
Oh,
it's a partnership. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So we go back to the interview proper. Can you compare the situation of Filipinos working in Hong Kong with Macau, with Taiwan, and of course mainland China?
Yeah. These places like Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. In China, the main difference is, well, first the number is so much for Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. But the main difference is in mainland China until today, it's mostly white collar jobs, and in the three others, it's a lot of them are doing.
In Taiwan, it's blue collar.
The blue collar.
They work in factories.
Yeah, factories, households work.
Particularly in Hong Kong.
Yes, in Hong Kong. Though these people are educated.
Sadly, many of them are college graduates.
In some of them, there are even movies that are made about our graduates or teachers. They go there to become maids because it's a half and half. We don't see them as half and half, but it's really half and half. Half of the time they do household, and half of them they're really tutors of the kids. It's not really bad. Those are good things. It's just people don't see that it's a half and half thing. They're educated, they're doing it, but on the side they're doing household.
They're not hired mainly to provide household services.
They're hired
cleaning,
to talk English to
laundry,
the kids also.
But they're tutors of the
kids. They're stay home, stay in tutors for the kids.
While in mainland China, it's mostly
in mainland China, they're white collar. Yes. So the new jobs that they wanted Filipinos to go in there, the 2000, they are legitimate teachers, but on the side there might be the same kind of arrangements also, where they'd be doing the half and half.
But I'm sure the requirements are stricter in mainland China than in Hong Kong and Taiwan, for instance. They don't have TNTs in mainland.
There are. When I was doing my research before, I wouldn't say the name of the establishment, but initially I thought they were Thai people. So I spoke to them in simple English. And I found out they were hired as performers or musicians, but they double as waiters. If you're a waiter,
you cannot be a performer.
Yeah, if you're a performer, you're holding a different visa.
Okay.
So they in that aspect they are, and then there are those who do the TNT trick, wherein they go to Hong Kong, they come into China, and then they go back to Hong Kong. It's shuttling to those two places. I would say with the strictest government, if the Philippines could do that, it should be more. It should be more than Yeah, more than just one. Definitely, there are people who are doing that. So it's doable, definitely. It's doable, yes.
So they get support, definitely.
Support meaning?
From legal sources, perhaps?
The one I met...
They still have visas, they still have passports with them.
The one I met, they said they could freely do it because there are leeways for you to do that. Of course, the excessive number of transfers could really get you questioned, like, why are you...
Why do you keep on traveling? You're not a businessman.
Yeah. And I'd say the last trip I had to China a few months ago, there were a lot of non-Asian looking people who are being questioned. But for Asian looking people, it's still not hard to go in. It's the non-Asian looking people that are having a time like questioning, like what brings them there, and so on and so forth. But for Filipinos, as long as you could provide the visa, there's no really...
And getting a visa is not really that hard.
It's easy. It's easy to get that. And then there are these package tours. There are these cheap airfare, so a lot of people could really go in.
As tourists?
As tourists and then staying, that's a different thing. I think not a lot of them are doing it. The illegal ones I'm saying is they're holder of some other types of visa, but they're working on other job.
Okay. Okay, so apart from that, what are the other challenges for Filipinos working? We're talking here of mainland. What are the challenges of Filipinos?
Well, challenges are the things we got used to here. Talking Filipino in English, and then there they have to switch everything to Chinese. That's the main problem. If you are to do a survey, that should be the top of everybody's list.
Is it hard for a Filipino to learn Chinese?
The Mandarin thing, the Mandarin language is the easier part.
In mainland China, they usually use Mandarin.
The thing in mainland China is everybody speaks Mandarin.
Okay.
But there's another language or another dialect. For instance, if you are in Shanghai, there's a Shanghainese language.
Okay.
So if you are in that place, you probably would survive with basic Mandarin. But once they talk to you in Shanghainese, then you're back to zero. so it's a concern also for them, like the local language, and then the culture is different. We
are basically religious. How are Chinese people?
For religion per se, I'd say as long as you go to those churches that are seen in the open, allowed, then you're okay. The ones that are being targeted are the ones that are so-called underground. So there's a patriotic church for Catholics, and then there are legitimate Protestant churches there, and then there are the underground ones also. So for the underground, I mean, it's the same thing they do. It's just not
legal, not allowed out in the open.
Yes.
Are there arrests being made for? Of course, we're familiar with the Falun Gong thing, but of course,
Falun Gong is it's a different story of its own, because the Falun Gong group, they're talking about it's a lifestyle. It's not a religion, and their followers swelled to several millions. So with that, China is looking at why do they, because there are things like they starve or they do certain type of exercises. So those are the things that they are monitoring. Are you doing this?
Okay.
Because it's religious? Is it a set of teachings? What is it? Because you're talking about lifestyle, but you're doing something that is more than the normal.
So otherwise, it's really not hard for Filipinos to assimilate in Chinese society.
Yeah, not that hard. Yeah, if people are open to learning a new language, if people are open to learning culture, then it's
okay. Finally, do you think China is a good destination for Filipinos to work or to do business in?
I'd say if the numbers are pointing at #2 economy, if it's being projected by some Harvard experts, like by 2050, 2035, there'll be the biggest economy. Then by looking at greener pasture, then it is one of the...
In spite of it has the world's biggest population. I mean, the Chinese people can readily populate their industries by themselves.
If a lot of Chinese are also coming out,
Okay.
A lot of people are also moving in. If you would look at the number of South Koreans and Europeans they're the two biggest groups in China, South Koreans and Europeans. They're there, and the numbers are way above the Filipinos. Some of them have already moved there. There are Koreatowns and Japanese and Taiwanese towns in Shanghai. We're talking about Shanghai only. We're not talking about the whole of China.
Yes, yes.
There's a Singapore town in somewhere near Hangzhou also. So these places are towns. We're not talking about jobs. We're talking about towns. These are numbers of those foreign nationals staying there for.
We have
living.
Chinatowns here, but we don't have a Filipino town in China yet.
It's time to open one, I suppose.
So in spite of all what's happening right now, there's still a future for Filipinos in China.
I'd say
our viewers.
Yeah, I'd say conflicts are there.
Okay.
Conflicts happen. Governments have to do their job, but people like Filipinos looking for greener pastures would never end. And China is just one of those destinations, regardless of what we have right now. And if you look at history, that long history, Filipinos have always been going to China. Chinese have always been coming to the Philippines. It's but natural for you to be checking, like, what's in our neighbor's backyard? What's in my neighbor's sala? What's in my neighbor's kitchen? And these are neighbors, so it's but natural for them to go there, for us to go there. And right now, there's just so many of them coming here. So we could probably equal the number of people going there also.
As what the Chinese say, I suppose, a good neighbor is better than a distant relative.
Yes, I fully agree with that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sidney.
Salamat
And
pa.
sisingiling kita sa China Center sa New Era University.
Yes, pa.
Okay, that's it for now, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching the show. This is Kaloy Tabunda, and I'm Juan with 25.